one thing that I like doing is kind of overlaying the BIM model and doing a video render so that you can see like, oh, this is what the building's going to look like when it's done. And then this is like your current version of the project. And it kind of, can glitch in between like what's going to be and like what it is.
Welcome to Elevating Drone Life. Each week, we'll be speaking with professionals from all walks of the drone industry to learn about their experiences, insights, and tips for success. Welcome to Elevating Drone Life.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Elevating Drone Life. I know I say this every single time, but it's only because it's true. I'm excited to have our guest today. It is a good friend, Brian Owens from the Whites Companies. And let me just do a quick introduction for Brian, and then we'll hop in and get started. So today's guest, Mr. Brian Owens, grew up in the quiet mountain town of Eager, Arizona. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, you got it.
All right. Where early mornings, milking cows. I did not know that about Brian. And tinkering with anything he could get his hands on sparked a lifelong passion for engineering and exploration. And so after moving to Idaho during high school, so you lived in Arizona, I presume, until you moved to Idaho for high school, competed in robotics competitions, ran track, which is cool. You ran the 800, right? Did I see that? That was in your bullet point, which is super cool. That is a very difficult race. It's basically sprinting for two laps, right?
Yeah, I had a love-hate relationship with that race.
I've never heard a good 800 runner that doesn't have that love-hate relationship. We're a big track family because of some of my kids. They're all track people. Not all of them, some of them. But anyways, you competed in robotics, ran track, and then you went on a 2-year mission in Hawaii for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's not a bad place to go spend a couple of years.
Yeah, I wasn't.
And then you went on to earn a degree in mechanical engineering from BYU, Idaho, which I know is a place that Whites likes to frequent to try to pick top talent. So I think we might be able to foresee what happened there. And at the same time, simultaneously, you were building and flying FPV drones, which just continue to deepen your fascination with 3D models and mechatronics, which I don't even know what that means, and point clouds. After college, your talents and curiosity led you to the Whites Company. Is it the Whites Company? Josh is going to kill me. Is it? That's right? The Whites Construction Companies?
Yep.
Correct me on that.
Yeah, so I think the real name, or like the full name, is the Whites Company LLC, and then sometimes we just say Whites, but
okay.
Full name is the Whites Company.
Okay, so I did have that right.
Yeah.
Where you now lead field solutions, which we'll talk about. I think that's an important subject for us to cover. And you oversee advanced technology, including drones, of course, laser scanners, construction robotics, and on and on and on. We'll dig into that. You've got a deep interest in radiance fields. Some of this we may not get too deep into because it could get pretty deep, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Right. The minutia can go way deep if we let it. But other cutting edge visualization technologies, which we could get into some of that because I think that's a really important aspect of what's happening within the construction industry relative to technology and the use of drones. And so you're part of pioneering the next gen drone deliverables for construction companies, which includes immersive overlays of BIM models, which we can talk about that with things like Unreal Engine and techniques like Gaussian splatting. We're definitely going to talk about that because you need to explain to me what that is. I am not Paul. He would know exactly what that is. I do not. And I have no problems admitting that. But Brian is a husband, a father of 2. I think you said 2 and 4.
Yep. 2 rambunctious boys.
It's a beautiful time of life. And also a passionate innovator helping reshape the future of construction tech, which broadly speaking, I think is something that we can get into for sure. So please, everybody, welcome to the show, Brian Owens. Again, thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Rob.
I'll just mention really quickly that we first met Brian at the 2024 Experience Training, which many of you are aware of, something that we do annually at some location, generally in the mountains of Colorado. Last year it was in Breckenridge. Actually, the last 2 years it was in Breckenridge. And coming up here the first week of June, we're doing the same thing in Breckenridge. Unfortunately, Brian won't be there for that. But Brian was there for 2024 and in fact won the competition. And I would say that you kind of knocked out some pretty stiff competition with some experienced cinematographers, videographers.
Yeah,
So,
I was a little surprised, to be honest.
yeah.
I mean, but that was a fun week. It was a lot of information packed into one week. But the stuff that I learned from there has, like, I've used it almost every day since then, and so it's been huge in what I've been doing. So
No,
anyway,
that's really great. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. No, it was so much fun. There were actually a couple of folks from White's, and I'll just say there's a lot of young talent at White's, I think is one way to say it, which is cool. Yeah. But all right, well, let's dig in. I think we'll start by let's hear from you. I've talked way too much already. Tell us a little bit about kind of your journey. Obviously, the intro did a little bit of that, but kind of what led you to White's, and just touch on kind of what you're doing now.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm kind of like you mentioned a little bit. I come from I went to school for mechanical engineering. Always had like a little bit of a tinkering background. So in college, I was learning mechatronics, which is talking all about like sensors and motors and electronics and kind of these electromechanical systems, and convinced my wife that I wanted to build an FPV drone to get to know this stuff better. I thought, oh, this is a great opportunity where my wife probably wouldn't let me spend, a few $100s on just parts and electronics normally. So took me quite a while to get my first drone even flying, but took off from there and kept building drones and stuff, and never thought that I'd be in the construction industry, but just had a kind of a chance meeting with Joshua Marriott, who's been on the show before and good friend of you guys. But he actually sat on a plane next to my father-in-law, and they got talking about things, and seemed like it
serendipitous.
Oh yes, yeah. And crazy how those connections happen. I feel like more often than not, it's it's these crazy connections that end up getting you a job or different things like that. So I talked back and forth with Josh over the course of probably like 6 months or so.
Were you still in school at the time, or had you already graduated?
School, yeah.
Okay.
And finishing up my mechanical engineering degree, and seemed like something that I would be interested in. So I had a few different other job offers, but I hung in there for the White's company because I really liked Josh. I liked seemed like everything that I had looked up on the White's company kind of seemed like it would be a good opportunity for me to be exposed to some really cool projects and some cool technology. Josh kind of helped craft a position for me that was a little bit different. So I got hired on as a VDC engineer, which typically handles like the building models and coordinating with the different subcontractors and the people building the building, making sure that everything goes in smoothly and correctly. And I didn't have as much of a background there, so I still kind of hired on, like planning on doing a little bit of that, but more so helping with the drone program and kind of like the technology that we're using here. And that's kind of what we call field solutions at the White's company, is like all that technology and so drones are just like a piece, but they're a very valuable and helpful piece of the technology here. So
yeah, no, that's really cool. So backing up just a little bit, you pursued your degree in mechanical engineering. It sounds like that was just kind of a natural evolution of Brian's life in terms of the tinkering, and that, It's almost like predictable that you would have ended up as a mechanical engineer, right? Which is perfect. You ended up kind of where you're supposed to be. When you were thinking of mechanical engineering, what did you see yourself doing post-graduation? Because you said not a construction company. What were you envisioning?
Yeah, I've always really liked like product design.
Okay.
I honestly like I love building things and designing things. So previous to White's, I worked as a drafter and then a project manager for a metal fabrication company, and really enjoyed. I built potato equipment, and so really enjoyed working with
Must be
welders.
Idaho.
Yeah, it was Idaho. So but I loved being able to design things and then see it go and be built. And so I do love like designing things. I'm big into 3D printing and stuff, and uh, like to build stuff. So
So in a sense, I mean, you're in the construction industry, so you're at least under the broad umbrella of building things, I guess.
oh yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Obviously. I mean, and you guys build really big stuff, which we could talk a little bit about. And so coming into White's, how much did you know about VDC and what it meant? Because you like building stuff. That's sort of the digital representation of building stuff, if you will.
Right.
So what did you know about it, and kind of how was that learning curve?
Um, so I had actually never heard of VDC before.
Really? Okay.
It was kind of just when I met Josh, then I started learning about this. Never heard of VDC or virtual design and construction before. And what VDC is it's handling the model and the design portion of the building all the way through construction. So you've got from the pursuit phase through pre-construction, through active construction, and turning over, you have this digital representation of the building that people can plan around, they can build off of, they can, later when the client is using it, they can use it for facility maintenance. There's so much that goes into this data that we kind of gather. I feel like VDC engineers are gatherers. They take a ton of different information and they put it together and put it in a format where people can utilize it. So
yeah, a curator of data, kind of like a curator of art. It's
yeah,
in some ways it is an art form, really, and it's cool because it's so useful before the project ever begins. It's useful during the project, which is becoming even more so with things like Cupics. Unpaid plug for them. And then it becomes a historical data point as well that people can always refer to, which you just alluded to, which that's pretty cool too. So what are some of the tools? We know that drones are some of the tools, and we'll get to that. But what are the other tools that are used in VDC presently? And because you've been with the company, what, a couple years, 2, 3 years?
Yeah, almost a year and a half now. So
Okay. Which, by the way, on that note, everybody needs to give Brian a big congratulations because he's already received his first promotion to tell us what it is.
Yeah, so I'm a VDC engineer 2 now, which is nice. No, it's nice. Nice that they like me here, that I'm not kicked out yet, right?
Yeah, I think they're going to do, knowing Josh, knowing how he feels about you specifically, he's going to do anything he can to keep you around. So, but nice try.
Yeah, no.
So anyways, back to tools. Yeah.
Yeah, so some other tools that we use. So we have different laser scanners that we use. And those send out points of light and then measures how long it takes for that to come back. And we can create, these point clouds that can go and capture realistic dimensions, like millions of dimensions of like these rooms or areas, so that we can, build around them or check, say that we like built something and we want to check that it's accurate. We can go out and scan it and then compare it against the model and make sure that everything was, built to plan. And so we have laser scanners, we have field printers. We're using a field printer called Dusty Robotics. It's a Dusty field printer, and that one's pretty cool. It basically is just an inkjet printer that is on wheels, and so we load in the different construction documents, and it goes out and lays it out on the floor. And so
that thing is actually, of course, we, having known you guys, we're familiar with Dusty Robotics, and we've seen it in action. Now, I haven't seen it live, but on videos. That is an incredible tool.
It's pretty cool.
And that is working. Just some of my questions, they end up just coming from a pure place of curiosity.
Yeah.
But that is all based on you feeding the documents or the plans into the software that runs that little robot, essentially?
Correct. Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about VDC being that curator, right? So we pull all of the different 3D models and documents and things from all the different people. So the nice thing about Dusty is it's not just like wall layout, but you can lay out all your like overhead MEP equipment, and like if there's owner equipment that needs to be sat or like on a concrete slab, you can, lay out the outline of that and stuff. But we pull in all the different file types and stuff, and then we turn it into a 2D like drawing, because the printer only prints in 2D. And then we feed that into the program, and then basically you have an iPad that you walk out to the field with, and then you just tap the lines or, select the lines that you want to be printed, and it goes and does its thing.
That's amazing. So to be specific for listeners, it's doing things like when we say printing, it's printing out where the walls go, where plumbing goes, those kinds of things, right? And it gets it down to incredible accuracy.
Yeah, no, the Dusty Robotics team did it right, and so they use like a total station, like and so you scan control points in the building, and with this laser total station, and then the laser kind of keeps track of where the robot's at, and we're getting like 100th of an inch accuracy of where where you're at. So it's very, very accurate, much more accurate than a human could be.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. So those are some of the tools being used in the VDC world. Where do drones fit in to all that? How are those being used?
I feel like drones are useful in so many different ways. We use drones in like every phase of the projects, from pursuits when we're trying to go after work and we need to know, like, have a good estimate of what the project is and what it's going to look like and stuff, and we'll go out and fly the project and get a lay of the land, and we use it for planning, for calculating cut fill, type, and lots of different estimates there. And then during active projects, we like to fly the drones as often as possible. It's just huge for like risk management, for documentation. So many times people have come back, either the client has said, oh, you didn't install this correctly or on the right date. And so we're able to go back to these, maps and stuff and say, oh, on this day we have record of this happening and going in. And it saved our butts so many times. So our teams use it for safety. We overlay like our underground utilities on these drone maps, so they know when they're going out to dig where underground utilities are. I was just talking to somebody earlier today, and they were using it to check penetrations before they pour concrete. They want to make sure that everything that's the concrete's going around, or like these different holes in the concrete, are all in the right place and stuff. And so they were flying the drone over that and then overlaying like a PDF of all their penetrations to make sure that everything was there before they.
So that was mapping. They were using that drone to map the project.
They were using mapping.
Yeah.
So there's just so many different use cases, going in areas that would normally be hazardous. Like we do skin inspections on buildings, and normally you have to go up in a lift and it's dangerous, and or we could just fly a drone up and take pictures, and you get a much better look at the building than you would from a lift anyway. So they're really like a multi-tool for construction.
It's really amazing. It kind of makes you wonder, how did the industry ever survive without them?
Right.
I'm being dramatic, obviously, but they're just such an amazing tool. And it's interesting because I was talking to a colleague last week in the industry in a certain form, and we were talking about drones and construction, and his perspective was, all I know is people that are just kind of throwing them up and they're on an automated mission just to do like progress checks. And I was like, really? I said, what I hear is that they're missing out on about 95% of the capability and opportunity that
Right.
drones provide them, right? And so, of course, as an educational company, I thought, wow, these people need us.
Yeah.
So
Well,
there's
and
just so much to do. It's crazy.
it's a constant battle. I mean, we have 40 plus pilots at Whites or so, and you've got a whole range of people that everyone from the people that do just send them up and let it do its thing, and that's all they do, and then there's other people that do much more, and so I think everybody, it's just a process of getting used to the drones, and then also being able to think outside the box and say, hey, I've got this tool. Maybe, it hasn't been done before, but it could be useful for a number of different, problems. So
absolutely. So I don't know if you know this, but how many, even roughly, are we talking in terms of what Whites has? Are you guys international? Do you have projects going outside of the country? It's not that important. I'm just
so we our parent company, so Whites was bought out by Orascom, and so it's like an Egypt-based company. So we White specifically, we haven't done any work outside the country in a little bit. We sometimes we'll go and do other things, but it's more of like our sister companies and stuff that we'll go and do work outside the country with. So,
okay. But under the umbrella of the parent company, if there's projects going on all around the world, how many of the projects, I don't know if there's dozens or hundreds or thousands, but how many of the projects have drones being used in some capacity on them? Do you have any idea?
It's hard to say, because a lot of our projects, like a lot of the pursuit projects, will get drones on them, just to get eyes on the project. Maybe they don't have active drone support later in the project just because they're so small or whatever. It's maybe a remodel or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I'd say probably 20, 30 different projects right now have different drone support on them. Most of our bigger projects, I would say all of like the bigger, more expensive projects all have drones on them. So
yeah, it makes so much sense on those for all the reasons that you've already stated. So you said that you've got about 40 give or take pilots within the program that Whites has that you're kind of overseeing. And I'm curious, what is there, and I'm sure it varies, but as much as you can kind of homogenize that paradigm of position, what does a day in their life look like? As it relates to drones, we could probably just kind of narrow it. Because one of the reasons I'm asking is because in terms of listenership and in terms of our constituency at Drone U, we of course have a lot of folks that are more in the category of drone service provider. Of course, we've grown the enterprise side like you guys. But a lot of people, it's really interesting. I think you're the perfect person to talk about this because of your path, being interested in building stuff, interested in drones. But you didn't think you'd be in a drone-related position per se.
Right.
We didn't actually touch on that, but you've mentioned that to me. And so I'm just curious because people might be, as they're thinking about, maybe they do definitely want to pursue something with drones. What does a day in the life at somewhere like Whites look like? I'm sure it's not 100% drones for anybody. Right. But I don't know, what are a couple of those?
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of, everybody that I talk to about drones, it's like, it's like having a drill. Like, yeah, it's great that you went out and bought this like Makita drill or whatever from the store, like, and you're really good at using it. But like, but if you don't have if you don't know how to drywall or you don't know how to, go and frame a house or something like that, then, well, that drill doesn't serve you a lot of good. And I mean, you can use it for little odds and ends, but I think that for me, drones have always been just a tool. And so a lot of our pilots, they're project engineers, they're project managers, they're superintendents. They have their day-to-day responsibilities and tasks, and I would say drones are just a small portion of the work that they do. And really, it's them saying, okay, I've got my QA/QC or quality control work that I need to be keeping up on, and so they use drones for that. And everybody, it seems like nobody has enough time in construction. I feel like that's just the world. And so,
agreed.
I feel like the drone data is just a force multiplier, being able to get the information that you need when you need it. And so a lot of the pilots at White's, I feel like they don't fly very often, or it may be only 5% of their work week is actually flying a drone, but the data that they use from that is huge, and they use it probably every day. So
yeah, that's interesting. That's a really good point, because I think we've been seeing that even with some of our, and you guys are, I would consider a large enterprise customer. That is a common theme of there's generally a handful of pilots that do most of the piloting, most of the flying. It depends on how broad the area is that is being covered. And in your case, it's pretty broad. Do you have anything in place to make sure pilots are getting a minimum number of hours in, just to ensure that they stay competent and confident, etc.?
So we don't have anything like certain amount of hours. We do have like a quarterly meeting that's like a mandatory meeting where we get all of the pilots together, and we do like an updated, we do training. So at White's, we have this kind of command structure with our drones where we have each of our different business units have a drone champion, and they oversee drone operations kind of for their different business units. And then under them are all the other pilots. And so we have monthly meetings with the drone champions, making sure that they're, following up and making sure all the pilots are, staying on top of things. And with different changes like DJI not supporting geo zones anymore, things
better
like
be careful kind of stuff.
Yeah, we, keeping on top of making sure that we're checking airspace and, doing our pre-flight checklists and different things like that. So we do a lot of just like one-on-one, and we use this command structure to just kind of update all of our pilots. And we're a pretty tight group. So I feel like we talk enough that if somebody hasn't been flying in a while or something like that, normally I'll just get a phone call and, they'll ask me questions about like, oh, hey, I can't remember how to do this, this mapping mission or something. Can you help me with this? And so, yeah, I wouldn't say we don't have anything like any standards for like number of hours that you have to fly.
Yeah. But you have a culture within White's from a drone program perspective where there's a lot of communication and
right.
There's a lot of connection and information sharing. And I know just like anything, it starts at the top, and I know how important all of that is to Josh, and he's obviously a good communicator, as are you. But what does your typical day look like as a VDC engineer too?
Yeah, it's
you're probably going to thinking, I don't have a typiul day, so we'll
right.
we'll work under that paradigm. But
yeah, I mean it's always different. But I mean, like today, we have a project in Florida going on right now, and they said that it was wrapping up, and so we had our pilot leave there, and he's on a different project now. And then they came back and said, hey, we need monthly drone flights again. And so today was like, trying to figure out if we can find somebody out there to fly, or if I needed to hop on a plane and go out there and fly next week, which still might happen.
No, you always know Drone U has people everywhere you need to be.
Right. And so that's actually very helpful. But so part of it's, solving these little forest fires, little fires that come up every day. I was in, a few calls talking about dusty robotics and getting that program, up and running. So I would do a lot of just like coordinating work and like this. I think I'm working on probably 6 or 7 different projects right now and just supporting them. And I think every minute of the day is bouncing between something. So I've got 3 different computers running right now, hot. And so I've got one computer that I'm running renders of BIM models overlaid with like drone stuff. And then I've got another computer that's running the Navisworks model or different things. And that's kind of like my main work computer that I've been taking meetings on and different things. And anyways, well, I split my time between a few different computers just to try to keep all the work going. But it's hard to say what a normal day looks like. It's just busy, it seems like. So
It's just busy. That's funny. How much do you get to fly?
I fly about I'd say every week almost, or every other week I'm flying. So there's a few projects here. So I'm located in Phoenix, Arizona, but there's a few projects that we have right around here that I'll go out and fly. With my background in FPV, we have a data center here that really likes the flythroughs of the building, and so they as often as I can, they like me going out there and doing flythroughs of the building with.
I'm sure that just breaks your heart to have to go do that.
I know, yeah, it's rough.
It's rough. I love it. That really is like not to diminish what you're doing, but like playtime.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, for sure. Yeah.
Very, very important playtime.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of what I do. I mean, the wow factor is kind of a big thing in construction, I feel like. And so, if you can create these really nice looking deliverables, I mean, there's a big step going from like being able to go out and do like an orbit of a building and then but if you're able to go further than that and like give the client or the project team like a really nice looking deliverable, they ask you to come back a lot. So
absolutely. So see, that's a really important point, because it's in a sense, these projects, they become your client that you want to invite you back to support the drone program.
Yeah.
It's a pretty interesting dynamic because you're all the same company.
Right. And that's I'm constantly growing relations with our project teams, with our superintendents, with project managers, and letting them know that, hey, we're here for you, to support you. And I feel like I've got, this little network that I'm growing inside of Whites that people know that they can come and talk to me to find solutions to the things that they're working on. So
yeah. And that doesn't even speak to, or maybe it does, but the subcontractors that are a part of that whole ecosystem as well. That's an interesting, actually have you been out, and I don't even know if you'd be allowed to do this, but have you been out flying for Whites per se, and what, because Whites is a general contractor and is overseeing lots of subs on every project. Have any of the subs approached you and said, hey, can you do something for us? Has that ever happened, or is that an opportunity?
I think totally. If the subcontractors need something, yeah, for sure. We can totally help them out with that. I mean, usually it's coming from the project team. Like I don't have a whole lot of those connections with like subcontractors yet. So normally it's them going to the project team and saying, hey, can we, check this with a drone, or can we, before we install this equipment, can we like check it, or before we like fill in this trench, can we fly the drone and like, get as-built locations of this stuff. And so a lot of it's, just coordinating and communication. We're all on the same team. And so trying to help everybody out. But.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've alluded to deliverables, and obviously that's what it's all about. Data. And I've said this a couple times now on shows, but data has been called the new gold or whatever, but I heard someone else say it's really not, unless you know what to do with it. Unless you can do something with that data, it's just ones and zeros, right? It's not that meaningful.
Right.
So when it comes to deliverables, I don't know, I don't know if this is the right way to pose the question. If you kind of want to reframe it, that's totally fine. But like the top 3, 4, 5 deliverables that you're providing.
Yeah. So a big one that we use is drone deploy. I mean, so we use drone deploy a lot. And so typically, baseline that we tell all of our pilots, if you put the drone up in the air, you have to get this, is we run an orthomosaic mission, so a mapping mission, so that we can generate, a big map of the site. You go and you take your ISO photo loops or, just at an angle, go and take pictures around the building or this construction site. And then we go and do an orbit loop around the site with video. And there's so many different people that touch, like we have a big old, box folder in the cloud that stores all of our photos and videos from the drones. And there's, marketing that goes and looks at that. There's, project teams that look at that. There's so many people, but that's kind of like the base of, just orthomosaic photos. Those are used every day on projects. And then, you got your pretty photos that are used, every other week we have like our owner training meetings, and those are used a lot just to show like updates of the building, status of the building. And then a lot of times we'll do like a video update with those video loops, but sometimes if we have more time or if it's a bigger project, we'll do like an update video that combines, that video loop with maybe some ground footage or some video from inside the building or different things like that. Clients really like seeing that. Really helps give a good view of what's going on the project site. One that I've been doing more is sending out what's called like a splat model or a Gaussian splat model. And I really like seeing our projects do more and more of these. And kind of the projects that I've started doing this with, they ask for it every week almost now. So, but we go and we take all of the photos and the video and we combine it into one 3D model render. It's like a photogrammetry model, but it's rendered a little bit differently, so it looks a little bit more realistic. Your trees and things like metal and steel columns and stuff like that come out a lot better. And so we'll train a splat model and then host it on a website and send them a website link so that they can view these models on. One thing that I like doing is kind of overlaying like the BIM model and doing a video render so that you can see like, oh, this is what the building's going to look like when it's done. And then this is like your current version of the project. And it kind of, can glitch in between like what's going to be and like what it is. And so clients kind of like that stuff too.
Oh, I bet they do. Especially to show all of their constituents, investors, just interested people, shareholders, communities, on and on and on. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are interested in seeing that. Are those pretty time consuming for you? And do you do that, or do you have people at White's that help you with processing and kind of making that happen, or is that like Brian time?
Yeah, that's mostly me right now. I'm trying to get the rest of my VDC team up and running on my process and programs. Yeah. But yeah, I have a couple different computers, probably always just rendering stuff out. From going out and capturing a project to turning over like a website deliverable is usually takes about 3 hours-ish, 3 or 4 hours. Okay. So not bad. And that's training time and, and everything. That's letting the programs run. Yeah. And so really not bad. And once you so I use Unreal Engine a lot for doing like the big renders. And if you do it right and have like your cameras and your, camera motions and everything set up right in the program, then it's just a copy and paste the new model in, and then, you can render it out in like 45 minutes or so. So it's really not a big lift once you get everything set up. Yeah. You have basically your templates in place and your processes in place.
I think that's a really good lesson, because it's like anything. If you take the time to set things up, the amount of, I guess, boost and power that comes on the back end of that is exponential with respect to how much it took to get there. It's always hard to devote the time to learn it and get it set up. But once you do, as you're experiencing, it's pretty powerful stuff. And that's probably what people, once they see it, that's what they're going to ask for, is that kind of stuff, because it's just so cool.
Right. And it's that wow factor, right? It's something they haven't seen before. And it's funny. Like, I like to critique my stuff a lot, and I think it looks terrible because maybe like some clouds rolled over like while I was flying the project. And so it just didn't form quite right. And,
sure.
But people that don't get to see that stuff every day, they love it. So
yeah, they won't notice some of those little idiosyncrasies in a lot of cases. It's their perspective is just different than yours, which is concentrated on all the things that went wrong or aren't quite right.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. So, what's the fleet like for the organization? What kind of drones do you guys have, and which ones are being used the most?
Yeah, so we've got our main workhorses, which are our Mavic 3 Enterprises, DJI Mavic 3 Enterprise drones, and those we run the RTK top hat on those, and those are kind of like our main drones. I'd say most of our projects have those. For a long time, we were running the Phantom 4s, Pro V2s and V1s even. We're starting to phase out all of our V1s, but a few projects still have the Phantom 4 V2s on them. They're still a great drone.
Yeah.
But,
as long as you can get batteries for them and
right.
Software doesn't pass them by but right now I agree. Yeah, they're still doing some really good work.
So we've got our mapping drones, which are those drones, and then we've got our mini drones. So we have quite a few like DJI Mini 3s and Mini 4s, and that's kind of like our close proximity or flying inside the building drones, which we use quite a bit. And then on a couple of our projects, for those who have a little bit more training or are a little bit more competent, we have our Avata or our Cinewhoop drones that will.
Okay.
We have a few of those drones scattered around the country. So, and those give you the really cool, fly through videos and stuff of the buildings. So.
Absolutely. Okay. So it sounds it sounds like it's 100% DJI at this point.
Yeah. So our entire drone fleet is DJI. And so Josh is of the opinion that he will not touch Skydio with a 12-foot stick. And
oh no. Well, I will say this, he's not alone. He's not alone.
And so it'll be interesting to see how we transition in the future as, DJI becomes increasingly harder to get,
Yeah.
So.
Well, it sounds like that hasn't been too much a part of the conversation up to this point, and we don't have to get too much into that because, frankly, I think people are tired of it. I will say that there's also interest in what is a company like White's going to do, and part of it, too, depends on the project. Like if you're doing a really important build for, I don't know, the DoD, for example, I don't even know if you do that, but let's just assume you do. That'd be a very different animal than, I don't know, a mall or whatever, right?
And I think that I would love to consider, like a free fly Astro or something like that. It would just be a bigger, investment. And so a lot of the way that we try to run the drone program at White's right now is we make it very inexpensive. We'd rather have the drones on the project than not. And so we try to run a pretty tight ship, but we're not like a profit center inside the company where we try to run it as just trying to get the stuff out there. So if we were, DJI was harder to get or whatever, and we had to buy more expensive equipment, then we would just have to charge our projects more, and it would just be harder for the small projects to get the advantage of drones on them. So.
Yeah, that's interesting because do you see an evolution from where things started with you coming on board to a point where the value to the project, and we don't even have to talk threshold. I don't know if it'd be 1 million or 100 million in terms of a threshold as a small project, to where it would just be, you wouldn't be able to not use the drones because the value is so great. Do you see that coming?
I think it all depends on the people that are building the projects, right? If they're used to flying, having a drone on the project, then they're not going to be able to live without it. And it doesn't matter if they're working on a small project or on a big project, they're going to want like the drone support. But then there's, other projects where it might be a very large project, like, we're building a student housing facility in Colorado right now, and we just barely set up, I think they've already topped out on the building, and we just barely put drones out on their project because they didn't know any better. And so it's this constant education of our internally and within Whites of what the drones can do and why they're important. And,
Sure.
And then as those people are on projects with drones, they come to be like, oh yeah, this is something that we need.
We get it. Yeah, so there's a couple of dynamics going on there, I think. One is, it's like any industry, there's sort of an old school perspective. And so there's going to be folks that have been around a while that just think, I've done this for 20, 30 years without it. What makes you think I need it now? And so that's always going to be there. Again, it doesn't matter the industry, but also even the folks that don't know about it, to kind of use your example there, your scenario there, they're going to see it either on their project eventually, or they're going to see how it's benefiting other projects. And so that's kind of where I wonder if that evolution almost kind of pushes it to the point where, and it might be when that starts to happen, it's the upper echelon of leadership that says, you have to do this. But it sounds like you might be a ways off from that, from what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, White's is like a pretty large company, I feel like. Mm-hmm. And even though we have, 40 plus pilots, in a company that has 1,400 people or so, there's still, I feel like we still are very small, that we could grow a lot. And I feel like that's a big push of mine, is just at the company with Field Solutions in general, is just letting, project teams know that there's a better way to build, and there are these technologies and things that are coming out, like dusty robotics, like, laser scanners and drones and all these things, that they're tools to help them with their project. And they're not just a gimmick, but they're actually useful and a force multiplier. So,
Sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that there's a lot of work to go. Like even at like White's, which has had drones for a while, there's a lot of work to do on just education. And I think as we continue to do that, then we'll grow our drone program, we'll grow the number of pilots. And I mean, we kind of expand our pilots as needed. So if there's like a need and we don't have a pilot, then we'll train more up. So
sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And like you said, there's a lot of room to grow. So that need it'll eventually grow for sure. What do you see for the future of media in the construction industry, and how can drones play a role in that? And that could be from a marketing perspective. I know you're not in the marketing department, and White's has that.
Right.
But I don't know, what are you seeing as far as potential for even more cool deliverables in the future that you're kind of excited about?
Yeah, I mean, video is just so powerful. I was kind of surprised when I came to White's, how I felt like, these deliverables, we're doing these, $500 million plus project, like $500 million projects or so. And the videos that we're sending to the client on a biweekly basis look like some high schooler put together, and I was like, I was pretty embarrassed.
Bite your tongue.
I was pretty embarrassed that this is like the quality of stuff that, we're sending out. And I think that, people, social media is huge, like YouTube's huge, like we're used to having this very refined deliverable of like content coming in, from all these different angles. And I feel like construction is just kind of lagging in the type of deliverables, just whether it's due to time or, there's just not those professionals in the construction field maybe. But at White's, like recently, we just brought on a professional videographer on our VDC team because we've seen the value of having those professional deliverables.
Well, and she's very good.
Yes. Yeah. We actually met her at the experience training last year, which is pretty cool.
Very cool. No, we're aware and we're excited for her and for you guys. It was a good marriage, if you will.
Yep. It was good to have her join the team. But there's a lot of internal communication and like even going to like safety is like number one on a construction site, especially at White's. And safety videos tend to be very boring, or like what's trying to be conveyed is not conveyed in a very good way, and people tend to fall asleep during this like 3 days of training or whatever that you have to go through. And I feel like drones being able to get these really cool perspectives of projects and just having these nice deliverables, it's what people expect anymore. And if you don't have it, like their attention span just goes out the window. And so I feel like there's a huge potential for these nice polished deliverables going forward. And I think that all these different jobs, from safety to, working with clients to, trying to win work, if you can make that polished and make it look like it came from a production company, not from a high schooler, then there's a huge amount of value there.
Agreed, 100%. And that made me think, you're not going to like this because you're a humble guy, Brian, but we're going to put your winning video as B-roll for the show. So I'm excited about that.
Well, okay, so let me give a little background. Like I came from like my nicest camera before the experience training was like a GoPro, and I had this like 4-year-old GoPro that I loved taking like little videos on, and I had no idea from like camera settings or anything going into that training. So, and
yet, I mean, are we going to be winning any Oscars with any of the videos that come out of that? No, because it's like you guys are starting the week in most cases, not everyone, but pretty low on the learning curve, right? And then you're ending the week with an actual competition. And so that's what this video was, the winning video from Brian. But no, I hear you. People should know that it was kind of a beginning of your journey with respect to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, which it's been really fun to, take it from there. And I mean, you talked earlier about me getting a promotion. And I think one of the big things about my promotion was being able to give these deliverables to White, and coming away from the experience training with like this. I think the thing that I got from the experience training the most was just like this new desire to learn, about video. And and it really like sparked this interest of mine to like, I went out and bought a personal camera because like I wanted to learn and do this more.
That's awesome.
And like I thought it was super cool. And
that's cool.
That was one of the reasons why I got a promotion at the company, was because I've been helping marketing out with videos, and I've been helping, like all over with video, and it became, so much of a need that we ended up hiring somebody to fill that role. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think, it was very needed. So
yeah. That's exciting, and that is part of an event like that, is to teach. Obviously, we want people to walk away with more knowledge, but it's also to inspire. And it sounds like that was at least a side benefit, which is exciting from our standpoint. So we're getting close to an hour, and I'd like to try to keep it there. Again, like I say, almost every time we do one of these shows, I could probably I mean, I know I could keep asking you questions and just keep talking, but I think I'll finish with this question, and that is, how do I want to phrase this? What I'm trying to get at is, what advice would you give to a budding drone pilot? And it's really in kind of a couple of different contexts. One is that someone kind of wants to follow in your footsteps, but one is also a pilot that wants to remain quote unquote independent and do more of a drone service provider path in providing value to construction companies. A White's isn't going to need them, probably, but there are other, maybe a little bit smaller construction companies that would. What would you say to either of those folks or both?
Yeah, I mean, I think just constant education, like learning, just keep learning and learning. And I think there's so many different deliverables out there, and as you know how to make orthomosaics, or how to fly FPV or fly Cinewhoops, like the more that you can leverage your knowledge of drones and do more than just the going up and taking a picture, it makes your value so much greater. And so I just think there's no replacement for practice and just going out and trying things. And then, I mean, deliverables are sweet, but I always think, like, how are the people that are getting this, how are they going to use it? And is it in a format that they can use? And so it's as cool as it is to go out and like laser scan something. And if I just give somebody an E57 file, very few people that would be able to like do anything with that file. Right. And so you have to, I feel like there's a lot more work that goes behind converting these files and the data into something useful and something actionable. And that's where like the real value of drones comes from is, yes, you're able to go out and you're able to collect this data and stuff, but how do you turn that into something that's useful and that they can take it and act on it, and they don't have to do a whole lot of work to get it in a form that they can act on it. And whether that's like a platform that they can, work off of or however it is. But I think there's not a lot of benefit to going to somebody and saying, hey, I've got a drill bit, like a drill, a hand drill, and put me to work, But if you go to somebody and say, hey, I have experience with framing, and can I get a job framing for you? Like, then you've got work. And so I think you've got to find this deliverable or find something that you're good at and that's useful, and then go to work with it. So
I love it. I love how we came full circle with the drill analogy. That was great. Kind of started. Well done, Brian. That was not rehearsed. That was great. That was great. Well, awesome. I don't want to keep you any longer than we kind of scheduled for, but wow, thank you. I think that was super insightful. I hope people enjoyed as much as I did. And time went by fast as far as I'm concerned. And is it okay if we have a question or two for you post-show? I'm not going to give out your direct contact information. You're just so busy. I don't want to do that to you. But if people ask me questions, maybe I could curate them and say, hey, Brian, you got a few minutes to answer some questions?
Yeah, sure.
Would that be all right?
For sure. Yeah, no, this has been super fun. Thank you, Rob. Yeah.
Thank you.
Always happy to, chat with people that have questions or different things like that. Cause I feel like the community is so helpful, and I've benefited a lot from the community. So would be happy to chat with people and learn from other people too. Right. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Well said. Well said. Well, make sure all your air conditioners are working there in Phoenix, cause it's about to get hot.
Yep. Yeah, it's already hot. I think it's in the 90s today. So
is that right? Well, anyways, every place has its pros and its cons. It doesn't matter where you are.
Yep.
Anyways, on that note, thank you again, Brian. Really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you sometime soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Rob.
All right, take care.
Thank you for listening to the Elevating Drone Life podcast. If you were inspired, entertained, or learned something new, please share the podcast with your friends and fellow drone enthusiasts. Join us next time as we continue our mission of bringing the real world of drones to life. To learn more about the Drone U family, head to thedroneu.com or for enterprise solutions, propsflightschool.com.